Hello and welcome. Today we're going to talk about a really exciting new release by Gucci. Gucci have just released their spring-summer collection, and what a bold move on their side. They're releasing neutral lipsticks for spring-summer 2024. Now that's not to say that these are the only products that are coming for spring-summer 2024. I'm not sure. The only thing they've released in the past month has been this new line of neutral lipsticks. And I thought it was such a inspired move when everyone is releasing pastels and corals and bright lipsticks. Gucci are like, let us show you how the game is played. So they're releasing a whole spectrum of neutral lipsticks in a variety of formulas, and I was instantly attracted to just the whole visual of the release, the promo photo that they had on their Instagram account. It just looks like delicious chocolate browns. And Gucci Beauty is a brand that I've been really following very closely because they're whole aesthetic, the outside packaging of their products, the quality of their products really speaks to me. The bronzer and the blush from Gucci Beauty are some of my absolute favorites within the luxury makeup realm, and I have somewhat of an experience with their lipsticks, but I was not really familiar with their lipstick formula because I really only have one of their Satins and one of their tinted balm type lipsticks. So I had never tried their mattes, and something else that I sort of passingly heard from other people is that something that Gucci does really well is interesting browns, a lot of very grungy browns, which on the one hand sounded very interesting and intriguing to me, and on the other hand it sounded like it would not be my cup of tea, because grungy browns are really difficult to nail depending on your undertones. I knew that they were doing really interesting things with their brown lipsticks, so I was at very least intrigued. So these lipsticks were released in the Netherlands, and I was kind of set on trying at least one or two, and I sort of wanted to go for one of the Satins and one of the mattes because I was actually really curious about their matte formula. And then last week they finally went on sale, because here on the two websites that we shop for beauty products, they will often have these 20-25% off sales, and then I used some points that I had accumulated, so in the end I purchased these lipsticks on a very good price. I think their price here is 48 euros per piece, and I was able to buy them something just above the 30 euro mark. When I decided to purchase lipsticks from this collection, actually one of the things that I struggled with the most was finding swatches online. Either because the collection is new or because it hasn't really gotten a lot of traction yet, you can't really find all that many swatches of their lipsticks on YouTube or generally speaking online, even on Instagram. I searched high and low for swatches of some of these lipsticks, and for the life of me, I couldn't find any. I'm pretty sure Michi'c from Michi'c also bought a couple of these shades, and she also demoed them on her channel, but besides that there's just very little to find on the internet about these shades. So I'm making this video because it's just really fun to talk about lipsticks, but also because if someone is looking for swatches of the specific shades that I purchased, I hope this video is going to be helpful for them. I think I'm first going to talk about the two Satins, and then I'm finally going to end with the matte lipstick. But maybe as a little introduction to the Gucci lipstick line, and because I now have a good variety of them, I can show you just in terms of packaging what the differences between at least three of the formulas are. So I have here a representative of their matte, their satin, and their tinted balm type formula. And let me tell you, they're really hard to hold all together, but I'm going to try my best. So from my left to my right we have matte, satin in the middle, and to the right we have the tinted lip balm. So the satin and the matte are the one that look the most like each other in terms of the outer packaging. They're both this beautiful vintage golden type of outside component with the Gucci logo on them, a very slim design, really aesthetically pleasing, really luxurious in the hand, just so elegant and beautiful. Gucci is doing something with their packaging that just speaks to the depths of my soul. But anyway, so the way you can recognize the matte from the satin formula is, even though they're both in this golden vintage type component, the matte lipstick has this sort of ridged edge to the outside packaging, whereas the Satins have this beautiful engraving on them. So that's a very easy way to recognize the lipsticks, if they're sitting in your drawers side by side. And then, like I said, the ones that are the most different are the tinted balm ones, which have this beautiful floral design on them. So in the very end of last year, I purchased my first Gucci lipstick, and it was this shade here. This is one of their satins, and it's in the shade Janet Rust. Janet Rust seemed just like a perfect winter fall type of color, very Mariam type of color, because I love me a good like fall brown with a lot of orange, a lot of red, a lot of like warm tones to it, just absolutely delicious. And Janet Rust really delivered in terms of that. It is very similar to the shade Cinnabar from Lisa Eldridge. Maybe I can swatch Cinnabar just for a little comparison. I think Cinnabar from Lisa Eldridge is just a little bit more, I don't know, orangish in tone, whereas this one is quite red on the lips. Sometimes on a swatch it's very hard to tell with lipsticks, which is why I have swatched a lot of these on my lips to show you differences in the tones and how they actually translate on the face. But when you put Janet Rust on your lips, you can clearly detect how much more red it is compared to something like Cinnabar. So even though they're in the same color family, they're one could even call them sisters with each other. They're not distant cousins, they're definitely sisters. They're still a little bit different from each other. But what impressed me the most about this lipstick, I think, really was the formula, because their satin formula has a really good amount of pigmentation to it. It's not like the Luxuriously Lucent from Lisa Eldridge, for example, which is more of a tinted lip balm, which is very buildable and very shiny. These are more of like a classic satin lipstick, but a satin lipstick that is very lightweight on the lips. You can build it up, you can sheer it out. It is extremely comfortable and it lasts a surprising amount of time. I've been so impressed with the shade Janet Rust and how little I have to maintain it throughout the day, because I wear my lipsticks when I go to work. I put them on at like 8:30ish, 9ish in the morning, and I take them off when I come home around 6:30ish or 7. And I do reapply my lipsticks specifically after lunch, but I noticed with this shade that there wasn't really that much that I had to maintain throughout the day. It just like hung around really well. So I was very impressed with the formula and like kind of like stuck with me, and I knew I wanted to try more shades in this range, but nothing from their regular line was something very unique or something that I absolutely per se had to try. So I was kind of waiting around for them to release new shades, and when this Neutrals collection released, I instantly thought this is my moment to try more of their satins. So I think the easiest thing to do is just to start with the shade that I am currently wearing on my lips, and also the first one that attracted me in this range. When I was first looking at the lipsticks and I wanted to first and foremost purchase a satin because I really like satin formulas. I think they are a really good balance between pigmentation and longevity, whereas with matte lipsticks it could be a little bit of a gamble. Maybe they're good, but maybe they're really drying and uncomfortable, which spoiler alert, these are not, but we're going to talk about that in a bit. Let's talk about the shade Eliza Ginger. So this is the shade 122 Eliza Ginger. It is the lipstick that you currently see me wearing on my lips, which is a beautiful warm toned brown nude, which is not too warm, but it is also not too cool. I think that's something that all of these lipsticks do really well. They straddle the line between being cool and being warm so well that in the end of the day, then they translate more neutral to me than anything else. And this is also the case for the shade Eliza Ginger. Eliza Ginger is just absolutely beautiful. I love it. But it is also very me shade. This is something that's very much in my comfort zone, a lipstick that has warm tones to it, a little bit of depth to the color, and again, it feels lovely on the lips, very nourishing, very hydrating, and I'm sure that it's also going to wear really well. As far as the shade is concerned and like dupes of the shade that I have in my collection, to be honest with you, I thought about it really hard and I couldn't think of a single lipstick in my collection that is quite like the shade Eliza Ginger. So this is the only shade that I'm not really going to show you any potential dupes for, because I quite honestly can't think of anything in my personal collection that is quite like this shade. So for me personally, the shade Eliza Ginger comes to occupy an empty space in my lipstick collection that I'm more than happy to fill with this gorgeous, beautiful shade. The second lipstick that I bought from the satin line is the shade 121 Elena Sand. And Elena Sand is quite much lighter in tone, and it is a little bit more pink in its undertones. Let me swatch it next to Eliza Ginger for you. So here we have the shade Elena Sand. And Elena Sand, as you can see in the lipstick swatch, is quite much lighter in tone. It has a little bit more of like a pink base to it, but at the same time, again, it is not a color that is too light or washing me out. And I think it's a really flattering undertone of like a nude brown lipstick with a slightly more pink tone to it. So if you compare the depths of these two, I think Eliza Ginger is just a little bit deeper and more leaning towards the warm brown, whereas this just has more pink tones to it. Now I have quite a couple of lipsticks that I wanted to compare to Elena Sand, even if they're not entirely in the same lipstick formula. So I have a couple of lipstick shades here from Lisa Eldridge, which again I have swatched on my lips because I thought this would be the easiest way to really properly compare the shades. Now I don't have a lot of the very light nudes from Lisa Eldridge. I really only like the lightest nude that I have from Lisa Eldridge that I think might be similar to any of these shades really is the shade Muse. But Muse is, in my opinion, still quite a different sort of shade, because Muse, by comparison, almost has quite a bit more like peachy pink to it. It is also obviously because of the formula a bit more pigmented compared to the other two, because it is a matte, like very saturated velvet matte lipstick. But I think even if you compare just the undertones of these two lipsticks, I still think the shade Elena Sand is a little bit more neutral compared to the shade Muse, which has a little bit more like warmth and like pink undertones to it. A shade that I don't actually think is very similar, but I just wanted to add it, you know, for comparison purposes, because I think in terms of the undertone, maybe it's a little bit closer to the shade Elena Sand, is the shade Velvet Affair. Again, I have also done a lip swatch of Velvet Affair. So here we have the shade Velvet Affair. So I think Velvet Affair in terms of its tones is actually quite much more similar. It's almost like an in-between Elena Sand and Eliza Ginger, but it is also in a matte formula, so it's much more punchy. It looks a little bit deeper on the lips. And finally, a lipstick that is actually in a somewhat more similar formula, and that is the Satin Allure from Pat McGrath Labs in the shade Negligee. I'm actually going to swatch Negligee right here underneath the two shades from Gucci, so that we can compare a bit more, because the formulas of these are just slightly more comparable. I think the one from Pat McGrath Labs, the Satin Allure, is maybe just a little bit more sheer and less long lasting on the lips, but they are quite similar to each other. I can detect less differences between these three lipsticks than between, for example, the Velvet Mattes or the Lucents and the Satins from Gucci. So this is the shade Negligee here, and I think Negligee, while being also quite neutral in tone and quite a nice nude with a good amount of depth to it, I think Negligee actually has much more peachy tones to it. Alright, I'm going to remove all the Satins, and now we're going to talk about the formula that was actually entirely new to me, and that is the matte lipstick formula from Gucci. And can I tell you what an interesting experience that was, not only in terms of the shade, but also in terms of the formula. First and foremost, this shade was the biggest gamble in my order, because when I went to look for swatches of this lipstick, it seemed like it might go well or it might go horribly wrong. Why am I saying that? Because the shade Suzanne Sunset, which is the last shade that I purchased, the shade 220, even just by looking at the bullet of this lipstick, you can recognize that there are clearly some, you know, grungy tones going on to this lipstick. And like I said in the beginning, grungy tones can go very, you know, well, or they can go really south depending on your coloring. So I can't really do grungy lipsticks which have a lot of like that yellowish greenish tinge to them, and I also don't get along with the ones that have too much like gray undertones to them. So when I purchased this lipstick, I thought I'm going to keep the box, I'm going to do minimal swatching of this shade just in case it doesn't work out for me and I have to resell it, because there was like a huge amount of leap of faith being taken here, because I just couldn't really find a reliable swatch for this shade that would swing one way or the other. But at the same time, I was very curious, because I thought if it does go well, it seems like a beautiful, like neutral brown with a tiny bit of grunge to it. And I'm just very curious about the matte lipstick formula from Gucci. And may I say that in my humble opinion, and hopefully something that you will be able to see from the lip swatch of this lipstick, I think my gamble paid off really, really well. Because this lipstick certainly has grunge tones to it, but it has a good amount of depth. and it is also quite of a neutral brown in tone. I don't see too much gray in here. There's a little bit of gray, as you can also see from the swatch, but it is not so overwhelming. I think because there is depth to the color, so there's quite a bit of like brownness to the lipstick and just a tiny bit of gray, this works really well. A lot of the times these like beigey, nudie, grungy lipsticks that have gray to them have too little brown and too much gray, which is why they end up looking like, on me at least, like I'm a corpse. And this one, because of the depth of the color, really comes across more as like a slightly grungy, but at the same time beautifully neutral beige brown. And I actually really like how this lipstick looks on me. I'm very curious what your opinion is of me wearing this lipstick, but I personally am quite enamored by the shade. What I'm also really enamored by, and I really wanted to take a moment here to talk about the formula of this lipstick, because it is a formula I recognized, and I am so curious if any of you who have tried this formula and the matte and soft matte, no, the hyper matte and the soft matte formulas from Prada would agree with me that they're quite similar. I am willing to bet that this lipstick is, like, in terms of formula, pretty much a dupe for the Prada soft matte hyper matte, because those lipsticks have a very unique formula to them. They're matte, but they have a creaminess to them, they have slip, and they feel a little bit, again, something that's very hard to describe unless you have tried it. They have a little bit of like a latexy finish and feel on the lips in the best possible way. I really love the formula of the Prada lipsticks. I've mentioned several times that to me what Prada has been doing with their lipsticks is really quite remarkable, because it's a beautiful, unique formula and really gorgeous colors. But now that I've tried Gucci, and I think the Gucci matte formula has been around for a little bit longer, it seems to me like Gucci did it first, because this formula of lipstick just feels so incredibly similar to me to the Prada ones. They're really comfortable, they're really creamy on the lips, and they last so well. They have a little bit of like that soft focus blurring effect on the lips. I am in love. I'm so in love that I'm definitely at some point in time going to pick up another one of their matte lipsticks, because this is a formula that I personally really enjoy. Now, when it comes to deeper nude grungy lipstick, there's really only one in my collection that has stood the test of time, and I still to this day love wearing, is the shade Sorcery by Lisa Eldridge. So you are going to see me also compare, like, on my lips the two shades, but even on a swatch like this I think you can tell that there is a difference, with the one from Gucci, like I said, being just a little bit more like a neutral beige, whereas the shade from Lisa Eldridge has just a little bit more of like purple, mauve, like berry tones to it, if that makes any sort of sense. I think they're both quite grungy, but they're grungy in a very different way, and I think on me, hopefully you will agree that they're both a very flattering type of grungy. Alright y'all, I think this is pretty much all I wanted to say about these lipsticks. I can't really think of any other comparisons that personally like come to mind from my collection of lipsticks. If there's something that I missed, please do let me know, and I will try to do some comparison swatches in a future video, or I can post some comparison swatches on Instagram. I'm more than happy to oblige. If you have any other questions about these lipsticks, I'm more than happy to address them. But if you asked me whether I recommend these lipsticks, I wholeheartedly do. If you are into like neutrals and you're looking for interesting neutrals in gorgeous formulas, beautiful packaging, and interesting undertones, then I do think that Gucci has done a really great job at delivering a very unique collection for the spring and summer of 2024. It's a, like I said, a choice to go down that road for a spring summer collection, and of course maybe they're still coming out with other things that are a little bit more vibrant, but I thought it was really interesting that they took this road, and I applaud them for it. I think it's, you know, really cool when you're doing your own thing. So that's really part of the appeal of this collection to me. I just think it's so unique. Anyway, I'm very curious if you guys picked up any of these lipsticks. What do you think about them? If you have more experience with the formula, and specifically the matte formula of Gucci and the matte formula of Prada, please do let me know whether to you they also feel very similar, if not identical. I hope that you enjoyed this video and it was helpful to you, because one of the biggest reasons I wanted to make it is to be helpful for whoever out there is also searching for lip swatches of these lipsticks. As usual, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!